sort of diamonds in the rough out there, waiting to be discovered. There's obviously been a bit of a rise with sort of things like academy teams. There was definitely a young lad whilst I was in Paris. Someone pointed, I think it was a Lems. He pointed out to me and said, "Oh, I've been sort of mentoring this lad," and this lad was 15, and he was in the Market Academy team at the time, or sort of being sort of prepped to be in like Market because he'd been trained for however long, sort of something like 12 months. LMs had sort of mentored this kid, and there's definitely sort of a rise on that, but it's quite a long time from 15 to Pro League at 18. I suppose actually that could almost be an interesting thing to have your opinion on. The age of like players, it's obviously requires 18-year-old to play Go 4s and play Pro League, Challenger, any sort of significant tournament. You have to be 18 with ESL. Do you think that's potentially stunting talent that might develop?
I hope it's not stunting talent that's developed. I know obviously there's people that are under the 18 like age limit that probably could actually play on certain teams that are pro right now. I've never been affected by the age limit because I mean I was 26 when the game came out, so it didn't affect me at all. So I've never really cared either way for it or not because I wasn't stopped from playing. I understand why. I mean it's not a rule, it's a law. I mean they're affected by a law, so they're not choosing to do it. They're just they're just following a law. So I mean to me, I see it differently, and I totally do understand that if I was 16, I would be upset by it because also too, when you're 16, you don't understand really as much like how the world works. So it's kind of like it's against me kind of thing. So I do understand kind of like their mindset and probably where they come from. I do hope that they stick around to play the game. I mean, what else are they going to do if they're good at this? Like, you might as well stick around and get that much better. So when you are 18, that you can jump onto a team. Because I can tell you now, when I was playing, it was a lot easier to get to Pro League than it is now. It's very difficult. You have to go through Challenger League if you want to make it on your own. And then you have to beat a pro team on one day. Like anything can happen on one day. So if your 6 months of work turns into we lost this one match. Now you got to do it all over again. So it's difficult to get into Pro League. So if they want to make it, they just got to get better. And I know there's people that are out there that can do it already. They just have to wait their time. That's just pretty much what it comes down to.
What advice would you give to up-and-coming talent then?
The same thing that, I mean, I think a lot of people would say right away, like most underage players are too aggressive. I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, I do think that they use a lot of their like natural skill to create plays more than they should. For instance, I can tell you from my own experience, Yaga, who's a player in North America who's very skilled, who's underage, in ranked, he'll just open the big window in Oregon for like a dorms hold. He'll just open the big window and fight anybody with an ACOG from the dorm window to the junkyard spawn because he can. But I mean, when you're talking about competitive, you can't just sit there and do that because if you don't win, you're instantly in a 4v5. So, and I'm not saying that he necessarily does that in competitive, but that's like kind of like understanding what your life means to every single round and understanding like what you're giving to the team while you're alive and while you're dead. And like, that's a big thing that people don't get right away, no matter what your age is. So, I mean, just use that time from when you're, 16 to 18, you got 2 years to perfect your craft. And as long as you take it seriously, I don't see why you can't, make it to Pro League.